Viva La Animación. And
Perfect.
we just started Viva La Animación just a few months ago, and we've started growing and having all these great panels and just kind of doing a lot in New York and Los Angeles. We're so happy to have Jerome Denjean here with us today. And for those of you who are joining us, this will be recorded. So if you couldn't make it, or if you have to go, etc., you will always see the recording afterwards. We'll post it on YouTube. And we'll also be taking notes for also those who can't make it. So don't worry about it if you can only join for a few minutes, etc. And so thank you. I'll hand it over to Brittany, who is part of our New York team as well, leading a lot of events and doing a lot of stuff like bringing Jerome on. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the intro. Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany. I'm one of the coordinators for events in the New York events team for Viva La Animación. And I got to meet Jerome because there was a webinar, something like this, that happened a while back. And so I just got into contact with him. So that's kind of how we met. But I guess I'll share my screen with our little presentation, if that's cool with you guys. All right. Can y'all see my screen? Are we good?
This is so cute.
Hold on, I can't see it myself. Sorry, this is like my first time sharing. Can you guys see like a full screen?
Now you gotta click on present.
Yeah, present full screen.
Okay,
Oh,
so sorry.
and then I have something covering it. Okay. All right. So we are Viva La Animación. And this is just a little bit about ourselves. We created a community to connect Latin storytellers and our unique narratives through animation. And our community consists of storyboard artists, visual development artists, character environment designers, 2D and 3D animators. Our community includes both. So if you do VFX, if you're a legal production, feel free to join our community. And you can join us by connecting to vivaanimacionconnect@gmail.com, follow us on Instagram, or you could also follow us on Discord and join our community group.
Thank you, Brittany, by the way. She just made this past day as an idea, just,
Yeah.
start making us look just to do all this. So this is great.
Professional.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get our questions rolling.
Do you want to
Jerome.
introduce Jerome?
Yes. So Jerome, I could introduce unless you want to go ahead and roll.
It's up to you.
All right. So Jerome is currently a supervising creative director at Blur Studio, which is known for a lot of their really cool animated shorts for Love, Death, and Robots. And as a supervising creative director, he's able to like lead and manage a lot of teams, including leads, and works a lot in the CG world for episodic productions. So I'll give the floor to Jerome so that he can talk a little bit about himself and what he does. And then after he shares a little bit, I'll ask him some questions and we'll go on from there and open a Q&A after that.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for having me. It's always exciting to talk with new people, and when Brittany contacted me, I thought this was such a fun little project. I have a few slides to do a little presentation about myself, just in case, because I think it'll be easier to follow. So it's not as cute and colorful as Brittany's, but hopefully that does the job.
No, you're
Can
good.
you guys all see it?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
All right. So my name is Jerome Denjean. I'm a creative director at Blur Studio. I've been there for 22 years now. So, which is a really long time since. So like Brittany said, I've been the supervising creative director of a show for Netflix called Love, Death, and Robots since 2016. My job means that there's a small team at Blur that just kind of oversees all the shorts that are being done for the show. For those of you who don't know Love, Death, and Robots, it's an anthology of animated short stories, and it's being done by by studios all around the world, including Blur. So Blur will do shorts. We have a lot of companies around the world doing shorts as well. But then I'm part of like the small supervising team that just makes sure that all the shorts are looking good. And I've been doing that since season 1 in 2016. Before that, I was the head of CG of Blur, which I mean, let's just take it like from the other side. I started at Blur in 2002. I did a little bit of freelance for a few months, and then I moved to Los Angeles in 2003. I started as a character modeler, and I also did some lighting of shots, and that kind of evolved into supervising projects after a couple of years. Being a CG supervisor at Blur means that you are in charge of one of the game cinematics or one of the commercials that we do. We do a lot of projects. There's a lot of CG supervisors, but like we're all kind of working in parallel on smaller projects. So I did that for 10 years, literally. And then in 2014, there was a little bit of a change of leadership at Blur. I can explain a little bit more later, but I became the head of CG, which means that by then I was starting to get a little older. And so my job as the head of CG was to kind of do at the studio level what I would do before at a project level. So I would make sure that all the CG supervisors were mentored and had all the resources that they needed, whether it was on their team or hardware or schedule, like sharing of resources, like that type of fun stuff. And so I did that for a few years, and that kind of led to my position on Love, Death, and Robots, because what I was doing with all the CG supervisors at Blur and making sure that they had the resources to do their job properly, that their projects looked as good as I knew they could. I am now doing that at the level of Love, Death, and Robots, and I'm juggling all the different teams around the world and making sure that they do the best job that they can. So this was the last 22 years now, and that kind of looks like this nice like little trajectory, right? Like I start from the bottom and then get progressively higher. But before that, it was much more chaotic. Because before arriving at Blur, I was working at a game company in Paris for a couple of years. I was a 3D generalist, and so we were doing like game cinematics by ourselves, basically, which the quality of the work was not the greatest, but it kind of taught me a little bit of every aspect of the pipeline, and that kind of served me later in my job as a supervisor. Before that, I worked as a web designer in my hometown of Lyon. That taught me a lot of different aspects of software. I only learned about 3D because one day there's an architect down the street that just kind of knocked on the door and asked if we were able to, if we could do some renders of the maps that they were, the blueprints that they were doing. And my boss was a little furious at the time. He was like, "Hey, of course we can do that." And so we had to learn how to use 3ds Max like really quick to just do the renders. But I really liked it, and that kind of led to a more 3D later. Before that, I didn't want to be a web designer when I was younger. I wanted to be a lead guitarist. My dreams of being a rock star were kind of quashed in the early 90s because I was not good enough. Like the band was not good enough. I had to kind of switch. The reason I'm mentioning that is because I started CG fairly late in life. Like I was 27, 28 when I got my first job as a web designer. So you know, the reason I'm mentioning this is because we all have like kind of chaotic lives a little bit, and it's not because you're not getting your dream job like as soon as you get out of high school that your life is going to be miserable. I went to college to study English literature and history, and it's not helping me that much today, although it kind of does because it taught me English and it taught me a lot of different things about life. So I had like a really chaotic like 10 years before I got to Blur, but I've used like all those aspects of life hopefully to my advantage, and I think I'm in the position that I'm in today because I did all those things before that. So real quick, this is where I'm coming from. I come from France, it's a small town called Vienne, with not a lot going on. When I was growing up, though, and I'm just gonna go quickly around this. Like when I was growing up, I was obsessed with superheroes, and I was obsessed especially with groups of superheroes. So Spider-Man, was great. Superman, great. But I was always very attracted to like those bands, those groups of superheroes that all were, you don't have to save the world yourself. If you have one special power and you find a group of people that all have like different powers, then you can help save the world. But you can't do it by yourself. You just have to find your super group. When I was growing up, there was also this magazine called Metal Hurlant, which has been kind of loosely translated to heavy metal here in the US. This magazine was an anthology, so every week it would have like short, like little comic book stories by different artists, different directors. It was kind of a very interesting kind of moment where a lot of new artists were kind of putting their art and I was always very attracted to that because there was a lot of different styles. It was never the same, and the stories were always very different. So I was very influenced by that. And also, I told you like I wanted to be a guitar, like I wanted to be a rock star after that. But what this is probably like my favorite album of all time. Like you guys are probably too young to know who these guys are. But I remember picking up the album because back then you would go to the record store and you'd pick an album based on the cover because there was no internet, there was no other way to just kind of. And I remember being attracted to this one because it was kind of the same as all the superhero stuff. Like those guys, these are four guys that all have like special power. They can all play a special instrument, but by using their collective power, then they can create those amazing songs, and they become the super group, right? And it's the same. It's all the same. It's all the same principle. So I feel like I have found my super group, in 2003 when I flew from Paris to Los Angeles, and so this was Blur. This was Blur in our old building, and this was my super group. When I pushed the door of that studio, I was like, I have to find the one thing that's going to make me indispensable to this group of people because I want to participate in that collective action, like all the things, all the great like little cinematics, all those great projects that they're all doing. I want to be part of it. And I realized getting there that you don't have to know how to do everything, but you have to know how to do one thing really well. And so it was all about finding, like your superpower. How do you make yourself useful? How can you be of service to a company like this when you don't know how to do much? So that's been part of the learning, and maybe we can talk about it. When I pushed the doors of the studio in 2002, I met Tim Miller, who is the owner of Blur Studio. He's also the creator of Love, Death and Robots. He's also directed a few Hollywood movies. He's directed the first Deadpool. He's directed the last Terminator. And I was very charmed by him because he's a very charismatic guy. But he always talked about Blur as being the dark Pixar. Like, and at the time, Pixar was like this was the biggest animation company in the world, right? They were doing those amazing movies, but you know, it was very family friendly. It was like all those like talking animals with big eyes, and Tim was always like, we're gonna do something different. We're gonna do something where we're gonna use animation, but we're gonna do some stuff for adults. It's not gonna be about talking animals, but we can take animation in like so many directions. Um, and he was always interested in stuff that was a little edgier and a little darker. So that's the dark Pixar inspiration of the first few years. Blur, I've been there for 22 years, even though I get bored very quickly, like at work. But I've been very fortunate to work for a company that does a lot of different styles. Like these were like the first 2 decades. I've supervised probably like 50 or 60 projects, and they're all different, whether it's game cinematics, it's superhero stuff, visual effects for movies, commercials. Like there's a little bit of everything, and but we've always also prided ourselves into not getting pigeonholed into like one particular style. We didn't want to do just very hardcore like photoreal animation. We always wanted to do like goldfish animation commercial because you need to kind of get outside of your comfort zone a little bit to just kind of reinvent yourself and to stay relevant and to stay interesting. Because if you start to get a little too comfortable, then you become boring. We don't want that. I was extremely fortunate when I got hired to be hired with a whole bunch of people that were also very, very talented. And because we all started at the same time and we were all very kind of eager to prove ourselves, we kind of pushed each other. And that was very important lesson for me is that, you need to find your group of people and then you gotta show each other the work. When I started to supervise projects like Dave Wilson and all those other guys like started to supervise projects also. And when you're surrounded by guys that just produce like incredible projects, you don't want to be the one that just does mediocre stuff, right? So we're kind of constantly learning from each other. There was like a little bit of a friendly competition that really helped us. But I wouldn't be by where I am today without having been pushed and being surrounded by all these incredible people. So like I said, since 2016, we've been working on Love, Death, and Robots. We're trying to finish the 4th season in a few weeks now. That should be coming out next year. And then we also, so this is a project that is being done by companies all around the world. It's pretty complicated to do, but it's at the same time, it's absolute magic to just kind of be able to finally collaborate with companies that were her competitors for 10, 15 years. Like we were always kind of competing for jobs with them. But when we got in touch with them and said, hey, we want to do an anthology and we want to push, what animation can be done, and we want it to be like the best thing in the world. Are you in? Every single one of them, they all said like, yes, hell yes, we want to. And it's been fantastic to just kind of turn our competitors into friends. Like now we work with them like every day, and we all get better together, and it's been an amazing experience. So amazing that we are going to apply the same kind of rules to this new show that is coming in a couple months called Secret Level, which is also an animated anthology, except this one will take place in the world of video games. And I think people are going to dig it because, if I may say so, I think it's going to be pretty cool. So there, that was my little spiel.
Gosh,
was
thank you so much,
awesome.
Jerome. If I may say so, I mean, then you can keep going. But I like had no idea that you did English literature and then you did what guitarist? You had your guitarist dream.
But he knows.
Yeah, I think
And
yeah.
yeah, and people don't. I mean, it's not that important. But the reason I'm mentioning it is because there's a lot. I know what it is to be in your early 20s and be stressed out about work and be like, man, I feel like I missed the boat. Like I feel like I missed that opportunity to get the job that I wanted or to get the studies that I wanted, or like, I should have decided to like get in school for this instead of that. But life is chaotic, and but I am in the place where I am today because I've learned, because I come from France, and so I'm kind of comfortable with different cultures. I've learned English, so that's helped me to get there. But like I also have this deep love for collective work and for helping, people helping each other out, like just and being in a band that taught me to trust the others with stuff that you can't do, and it's okay. So that's why I'm just mentioning all that, because it's not, obviously I'm not using music every day, but I do use some of the concepts that I've learned while I was learning music.
Oh my God, Jerome. Morgan in the audience said, "What an amazing journey as someone in their early 20s. It definitely makes me feel hopeful. Things will eventually work out." And
Yes, things will eventually work out. There's this incredible speech that I don't know. I'm sure some of you have seen it. This incredible speech from Steve Jobs, who's the founder of Apple. And if you want to look for it, it's called "Connecting the Dots." And it's a speech he gave to students at Stanford, like for their commencement. And the gist of it is Steve Jobs like founded Apple when he was very young, right? And before that he wanted to go to college, but he didn't have enough money to go to college, and so he had to drop out of college. But he still like kind of hang out like around the campus to just kind of take some of the lessons that he loved, and he loved calligraphy. So he just kind of snuck in there to like take a few advanced classes of calligraphy. Then he started Apple, and then after like Apple became this very big company, but it became so big that eventually he got fired from Apple. Like he got fired from the company that he started, and he was depressed and he didn't know what to do anymore. And but eventually he started another company that got bought by Apple again. And then since Apple was not doing really great without him, they brought him back. And then that started the golden age of Apple with the iPhone, the iMacs and all that stuff. And the reason he's saying that is that look at where Apple is right now. At some point, it felt like I had lost everything. But all of these things just turned out for the better. I didn't have enough money to go to college to graduate for a full education. But because I snuck into those calligraphy classes, the Mac has always had these like great fonts because Steve Jobs was so passionate about it. And also, because he got fired for being a little bit of a jerk, like he had to learn how to tone it down, and then he learned how to make those incredible products while he was gone. And so it's called connecting the dots, because he's like, all those failures at life, as they came in, they looked like they were like absolutely terrible, but today they have brought me this incredible success and this incredible joy. So you're all connecting the dots in your own ways, like in your 20s, believe me.
Well, can I just say I'm not in my 20s, but I kind of had a similar, I was a lawyer first and I went to law school and I did human rights law, and a lot of it was influenced by my parents, and it was just but even while I was in law school, I guess like my little way of doing it was going to animation classes at night, like taking like courses, like continuing education courses. So yeah, I encourage any of you, if you feel like you're lost or anything like that, you can always start with like baby steps. And now I feel like I'm finally, like years later, I'm finally like using law, but helping with my projects now, not necessarily, it's like a different kind of way to use the law. But now I'm like making films, etc. Yeah, I know. It's like, but yeah, I just really, now I'm at Go Blonde, like living my dream pretty much. Like I'm just so happy every day finally, doing it. Like,
And
This
if I
is
can
this is
add as well, like
amazing.
also Adela was one of the people that like brought our community together, and the reason that Viva La Animación exists is because of her and her community continuing to create events like this. So like to everyone that's here, maybe like I know the industry's on fire and it feels like everything is panic mode, but it takes time, and like this is thanks to the events like these and things like Jerome has mentioned, we'll get there. Like you just gotta have the attitude for it.
I
Just
know.
go for it. Just go for it and don't get too comfortable doing what you're doing, because that's an important part of it. Like just you gotta reinvent yourself like as much as you can, because otherwise you get complacent and then it's not good.
I think Brittany, if it's okay, I want to read Ellie's question
Yeah,
in
I
the
think
chat.
that's a really good question. So go ahead.
Yeah, Ellie Hui said, I really loved how you talked about wanting to push the boundaries of animation and seeing it outside of children's media. I personally relate more to animation that isn't afraid to tackle deeper subjects. Did you ever experience any pushback for wanting to make animation not family friendly?
Yeah, we couldn't do this project for many years. Like this is a project that Tim has been kind of wanting. Like I'm talking about Love, Death and Robots, for example. Like this is a project that we wanted to do since I started at Blur. And we almost had a chance to do it at some point. It was in the late 2000, I think it was 2008. And yeah, I mentioned the magazine Métal Hurlant and how it's been kind of imported here. It was a bit of a different version in the US, but um, of this magazine called Heavy Metal. In the early 80s, Heavy Metal magazine tried to do there was a feature film that not many people like are aware of because it didn't age that well. But there was a feature film which was an animated anthology. You can watch it on I'm sure it's on Netflix or Amazon. Um, and it was like there's different like little short stories from different different directors and it was all different styles. It hasn't aged that well, but in 2008, the Heavy Metal magazine asked if we wanted to do like a reboot of the feature film, like a new generation of this project. And so, of course, we were like, hell yeah, let's do it. So we were gonna do that at Blur. We had a different supervisor was gonna do a different style of story for the feature film, and then we had this roster of directors. Like check this out: we had Tim would direct one, with David Fincher would direct another one. James Cameron was on board, was gonna do one. Zack Snyder was going to do one, and then Gore Verbinski, who directed all the Pirates of the Caribbean, what was on. And you cannot dream of a better like lineup of directors to do something like this. And the studios were sort of interested, but at the last minute they pulled out and they were like, "We don't think there's an audience for that," and so we couldn't do it. The only reason we were able to do it like almost 10 years later was because Tim directed Deadpool, and Deadpool was the first superhero movie that was rated R, and which because of course he likes to push the boundaries. Um, all the Marvel movies before that, whether it was X-Men or the Avengers, they were all kind of family friendly, right? Like there's no cussing, the violence is still fairly limited. Tim like wanted to do Deadpool as something a little edgier, so there's a lot of cussing and then there's a lot of violence. Fox just kind of took the risk to make it a rated R movie, which means that, you know, like you kind of cutting yourself up from half of the potential audience by making it like only people over 17 that are able to like go watch it. But it was such a huge success when it came out. Like it made a ton of money, and it kind of showed the studios that there was an audience for something that's a little edgier, um, for something that was traditionally more of a family friendly thing. And so the weekend Deadpool came out, like it got this huge reaction. And David Fincher, who's one of the executive producers on the show, called Tim and was like, "You remember how we wanted to do heavy metal? Let's just go take it to Netflix tomorrow. Come on." And so they went to Netflix, and then they they pretty much pitched the same thing that the heavy metal movie would have been, but as a TV show, and then with our own like IP, and Netflix was like, "It's okay, let's do it." But it took many years. You gotta believe like those things. It's a lot of meetings that Tim had to go through and pitch that and get rejected, but you know, eventually it worked.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. That's actually so interesting, just like how the timing worked really well for this to be able to happen. And congrats to Tim for like also being able to open that door in a way and like pushing so hard for a story like that to be told.
Right.
Um, yeah, and that incredible lineup of directors. I don't know how everyone else is feeling here, but oh, my heart.
I know. It's just I would have loved to see that all
Yeah.
those directors do that project.
I mean, just him saying the director of all the Pirates films, I'd be like, ah. Like those movies were great in terms of effects, and just the
yeah,
things that they did then still holds up to today is like amazing. Like the ships, the Davy Jones. I mean, I'm just like amazed by those.
right.
Cool.
Did you
So,
want to read a question?
yeah, I could read one of my questions. So, what does your day-to-day look like at work? So are you fully remote? Are you hybrid? Are you in person? So who do you often work with? Can you go like a little bit more specific? I know you mentioned it earlier, but like if you're gonna go into work tomorrow, what are you doing?
If I'm going to, you know, I work mostly remotely now, but it's a hybrid combination. There's different reasons for that, but we're in the process of moving to a different building. So hopefully we'll have an office that is welcoming and where I can I spend a lot of my days on Zoom because I work with all these companies around the world. So whether I go to the office or I stay at home, it's a bit of the same kind of day. Because I'm gonna have to sit on Zoom and talk with people. So, you know, my day to day is a mix of like I would say it's 3/4 Zoom calls and then a quarter just just work where I can do paint overs when I feel like some shots need like a little help, or I'll um that kind of work. So like the type of stuff that I do is usually pretty like I don't go into like 3D software anymore, but it's more like just kind of general art direction more than the nitty-gritty of production. I used to do it, but now it's more general art direction when I'm talking with supervisors around the world rather than just getting into like very specific things unless it's needed, but it's rare.
That's interesting. So because you're like not going into 3D software as often, do you miss not being able to go into that? Or is that like a nice relationship of just sort of directing a lot more people?
I don't miss it that much. I mean, I'm fortunate to have I think 3D software for a long time allowed me to just be in touch with art, you know, and I'm still in touch with art, like whether it's just doing like a quick Photoshop, like on a paint over, or if it's going and moving, you know, UVs like on the 3D model, it's kind of the same. It's kind of this, like it tickles the same the same thing, you know? And so as long as I get to talk about art, as long as I get to discuss things and bounce ideas with people who are very creative and artistic, and we get to find like creative solutions to problems, that then I'm happy. Yeah.
Sweet. All right, another question that I've received was, are there any particular stories you enjoyed working on the most, and what was your experience? I know you've talked a lot about like the overall scope of Love, Death, and Robots, but is there like one specific one, or maybe in this new show that you have coming out, Secret Level, that's like, this is where my heart kind of lived for a while?
You know, like I get asked often like what my favorite episode is, and it's tough because they're all my children a little bit. You know, there's some stories that were there's some like my attachment to the stories is probably a little different from most people because I get to be behind the scenes of it. So sometimes there's some great stories that were so painful to like put out that I have like it's harder for me to watch them now because all I remember is all the drama that happened like when we were working on them. And then vice versa. There's some that, you know, some people are not necessarily like reacting to so well, but that were such a pleasure to work on because people were great or we had like such great like, but you know, each one of these stories is kind of it's kind of a great adventure like every time because sometimes like the joy is to partner up with a particular director. Like I love, for example, like since season 2, our supervising director is Jennifer Yu Nelson, who's this absolutely lovely woman who can direct. She's directed Pop Squad and Kill Team Kill before. She's doing one now for the next season that it will bring you to tears. I promise you. Like this one is just so amazing. Um, I've always loved working with her because she's such a, you know, like directors are not always the easiest people to work with. But she's just such an amazing soul. Like if anybody ever has like a chance to work with Jennifer, just jump at it, regardless of like how profound the project is, because it's just a wonderful human being. But you know, and it's kind of how I look at it. Like I love the human adventure, and I especially on Love, Death, and Robots of being able to like collaborate with all those people around the world. Like it's been so great to. Sometimes it's been great to just discover a little studio that just, you know, was doing small things, and then now they're doing like great things. There's a studio in Spain called Illusorium that just contacted me like a few years ago. They wanted to do something for Love, Death, and Robots, and they were so small, and they had almost done nothing, but they had this passion, you could tell. And so we kept in touch over the years, and now they've done 3 episodes for Secret Level, and you gotta see this. Like it is unfucking believable. Like they're so good. So that's like my biggest pride for the project, to have been able to like just kind of hold their hand a little bit, like, you know, as they're taking their steps in the like in the larger world of TV, and yeah, like when stuff like that happens, like to me it's I've done my job. Like that's beautiful. Yeah.
Just to go off of that, I was gonna say, is it okay if I read Ellie's question out first? Because I
Yes,
feel like
do it. That's a really
Ellie,
good segue.
Yeah, Ellie asked if you could answer what episode of Love, Death, and Robots was the most difficult to work on and why?
Man, I would have to have like a list of them in front of me. There's one that was probably hell for people who worked on it, but not necessarily for me because I wasn't in the day-to-day, but if you've seen Hibaro, like the last season, um, that one must like that one I can watch it and I look at every frame and I'm like, some people suffered to make this frame because it is so everything looks so labor intensive. It was so different and so I mean I love this project. Like I when Alberto Mielgo just sent us like the final thing, like we hadn't seen stuff for a while and I cried. Like I was like, this is the reason why we're doing this job, you know, to just be amazed by something different. And even though you know, I've been doing this job for a long time, like 20 years. Like I've seen a lot of CG, but there's still some projects like that will bring you to tears because you're like, I've never seen something that beautiful, or I've never seen something like that, you know. And I live for those moments. Like, but I'm, but I've heard from people who worked on it that it was pretty gruesome.
I'm gonna also read what Ellie said, like Hibaro changed my life. It made me want to go into 3D. So hearing you talk about this passion and like understanding what the people behind the scenes were also going through, like to make something so beautiful, it hits. And I also like Ellie, like I remember watching it and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like I wish we could have this more as a 3D artist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. But there's not a lot of people that can do it, you know,
It's
in the world,
it's team.
and so, but it's also life-changing because it is so different and it's so, you know, they chose to do something that was not like what everybody else does and it takes courage, you know.
Yeah. I could read this other question that JD Zhao asked. Is it hard to find people who have similar vision as you? You've mentioned like working with many different companies and like Illusorium, someone from way back that has come now. So how has that journey been? Is it difficult? Is it just like the waiting game?
it's it's hard and not hard, but it's hard to there's a lot of people who want to there's a lot of people who want to work on Love, Death, and Robots. There's a lot of studios that are contacting us that want to do something, but what I find is that it's difficult to find people who are willing to make themselves uncomfortable enough to participate to a project like this. And by that, I mean that there's companies that love to do something and they just want to do the same thing over and over again, and they're really good at it. But we find, and I particularly believe that you like the magic, you know, there's this slide like somewhere like that says like the magic comes when you step out of your comfort zone. And I think that, you know, Hibaro is so amazing because every single artist on it like was willing to do something they've never done before. And I think that's what it takes. It takes people who are confident enough to just want to do something better than what they've done before. But it takes a special kind of people, you know, to do that. The story I always tell is like when we started the first season and we were kind of showing stories to different studios, we we showed we contacted the Unit Image is this like amazing studio that does 3D in Paris. And they've done a lot of game cinematics that were mostly like effects, you know, game cinematics for like games with like mech warriors and like stuff like that. And we sent them that story called Beyond the Kill Rift, and it's a story that doesn't have a lot of effects. It's just 2 or 3 people that are talking to each other most of the time. And when we sent them the story, they were like, you don't have anything else? Like, you don't have anything where it's more like explosions and mech warriors and giant robots? Like, because we we've never really done like a lot of stuff with visual animation. But we were like, yeah, but we think you'd be good at it if you put your minds to it, because you guys look like smart people. Like, if you put your minds to it, I think you could do something pretty amazing. And so they're like, okay. And now, and that was another one of those moments. Like, there's this scene at the end where this girl starts crying at camera. It is one of the most beautiful like CG emotion shots you can ever imagine. Unit now has the best visual animation in the business because they were like, we're not there yet. We gotta challenge ourselves to do better. And then now they're better than anybody else. And that's, to me, that's the kind of people that we're looking for. Like, these people that are, but they have like the confidence that they will figure it out and that will solve it. And Illusorium is the same. Illusorium, like, the Raul, their CEO, like, kind of came to me as like, we want to be part of it. And I'm like, what have you done? And they just had like flying logos and stuff. I'm like, Raul, it's a little, we're gonna need more than this, you know? He's like, okay, well, tell me. And so we talked for 2 years. Like, I was like, you need to develop like better character animation, like, because that's the main thing. Like, you need actors for your story. Okay. And then a year later, I would come back and he'd be like, so we've done this project, what do you think? And then we talk about it. But he's always willing to just kind of challenge himself to just do something even better next time. And that's the kind of long-winded answer to hopefully to your question. But that's the kind of people that the people we don't really enjoy working with are people who just want to do the same thing over and over again. Like that, I find that there's not a lot of magic coming out of that.
Thank you. I think, is it okay if I read Julia's question?
Yeah, that's also a good question.
Yeah, Julia Stieglitz asks, how do you retain your passion for 3D art through the turbulent times in the industry?
You know, I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky because every once in a while I'll get down a little bit, but then, Alberto Mielgo will send us Hibaro, and you're like, all right, there's no other job than this one. Um, I think you gotta surround yourself with positive, passionate people. Like, I think that's the main thing. One thing that I've always been careful about in my life is to choose to work with people more than work for a project. I would rather be happy to go and I'd be happier going to work with some people working on some web design or some graphic design with like a team of great people that just wants to like kind of push the envelope, rather than work on a big Marvel feature with people who don't care. Like, to me, that's always been but that's me, like that. Like, I don't really care about how high profile a job is, but I do care about whether the people that are around me are gonna push me to be better.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And it is important to always find like your little tribe. I like to call it that. So
Totally.
Yeah, I was gonna just add, like, even, and I don't know if everyone here is in school or where they're at right now, but even in school, like, you could do that in terms of finding classmates who, you can work well with and who have those same kind of ideas and, maybe challenge you to be better. I'm finding that now I'm back in school and I'm finding the same, like I'm finding certain classmates who were like, oh my God, we just get our engines going. And that's really nice. Like, so you can find that in different settings.
Do little collective projects together. That's the best way to kind of get out of funk, you know, like if you feel like you're kind of hit, like, and you know, it's bound to happen if you're only just looking at what you're doing on your own, but you're not sharing your work with other people, you're bound to hit like the ceiling and because because you need other people to push you and to just show you like different things. Like there's no better, like especially like if you're young, like there's no better way to get better than just find a group of people who are passionate and then just find your, you know, find your power, like find your, like just be of service to people who are like great and help them and they'll help you. um it's a there's nothing worse than just like kind of fading by yourself. Like you gotta find other people. You know, like at the beginning, I was talking about how I was fortunate to start with a bunch of other people at Blur, and it's true. And I've seen it over the years at Blur, like whether it was me or other people. It's always when there's like a bit of a hiring spree. Like let's say suddenly we got this big projects and we're missing like a lot of people. Like it's always been when we hire like 5 character modelers at the same time and they're all kind of junior. Like it's better to hire 5 juniors that are gonna push each other because they're all kind of very interested rather than hire like one person that's very seasoned. Because the person that's very seasoned, like they've already reached some sort of plateau, and without somebody else to just kind of challenge them, they're not going to get better. But juniors, especially like multiple juniors that are just kind of all like kind of looking at each other, that's how you get better. So find your band of people that are like you, because that's how you get better.
That's a good question and a good answer. Thank you. Um, Another question that I think is going to be important for a lot of people here. It seems like most of us are juniors. For the juniors in the audience, is there any advice you can offer them, like in terms of, are there any mistakes that you've often seen juniors that come in, like if you put, I guess, the 5 character modelers together, anything that you wish that they would avoid so that we can take that with us when we leave?
I think the biggest mistake I see some juniors do sometimes is to feel that that they have to show that they know everything. And by pretending that they know everything, they cut themselves off from learning from others by asking questions. When you're a junior, if you get hired as a junior at Blur, we know you know nothing. Like we know it. Like there's not enough school that you have attended, and there's not enough talent out there in the world to be distilled in one person for you to be able to compete with the best character modelers that we have or the best like lighters or. But when we hire like juniors, we're kind of banking on the future and we're banking on the trajectory that that you're gonna make. And if I hire, like, I did a lot of hiring, like back in the day when I was like the head of CG, for example, like I would hire for every department. The best people are always the people that come in with some humility. And they come in and they're like, wow, I cannot believe I'm here working amongst all these people that are just so good, right? Because when you have that humility, people will be like, I need to catch up and I need to work twice as hard as the next guy because that's how I'm going to catch up. And it's without fail, it's always been the people that are possibly the least talented when we hire them and they're the most humble that will get to the highest level later on because they come in and they're like, I need to catch up on how to train my eye. I need to catch up on anatomy. I need to catch up on like how to make the best textures. And the ones that are humble are not afraid to ask questions to the people who know. So if you go like, I realized that my anatomy is not the greatest. Like, how did you ever get to know so much about anatomy or whatever? Like, they'll ask like one of the senior guys. If you come to anybody with this kind of humility and you ask them to help, they will help. Like, but if you come in and you're like, yeah, oh yeah, I know anatomy, and you kind of come off as like this kind of know-it-all, like insecure person, because like we can tell insecurity versus, you know, humility, like especially when you come out of school, like we've seen it, you know, and your greatest asset is your ability to be humble and to ask questions and to be of service. Help the guys that can help you in turn, you know, help the guys that are like really great, offer your help and they will help you in turn. So that's kind of how I would that's kind of how I would approach it. Just be humble. Just be aware that people are aware that you're a junior and that you're not at the level of a senior person. That's okay. But what you need to show is that you are willing to put in the work to bridge the gap as soon as possible.
Excellent. That's awesome. I guess now we could open up to Q&A to the audience. I know we're a little bit where it's already 6 p.m. for us. It's already been an hour, but if there's any other lingering questions that folks have, now is your time. You can type them in the chat, or if you'd like to, you could unmute and ask them.
Yeah, don't be afraid to unmute.
Yeah.
I did.
Turn
There
your
was a-
cameras on.
Yeah.
There was a question that was sent to us before too. Someone couldn't make it. They said, what skills are you looking for in hiring a lighter? Is comping skills required? I don't know if you do that, but
I mean, good lighting. I don't know how else to say it. No, you don't need to be a comper. You know, it's like the debate where I get approached every time by like people are like, well, I want to be a generalist, but people are telling me I need to specialize like right now. Like, what should I do? And I'm like, just do what you want. You know, like if you want to be a generalist, then be a generalist. Like, nobody's gonna fault you for it. But it's I'm a generalist. Like I've and I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I try to specialize a little bit, but like at some point I was doing mostly like kind of character models. But I find I love doing characters and I love characters, but after a while, like it's nice to be able to do something else. And I like to know what an animator is going to do with my character model. So I would always be curious and be like, hey, show me, like, you know, and the lighting. If you want to be a good lighter, I would say just get a shot deck subscription and then just analyze like how people like light shots, you know, and then try to recreate the scene or recreate something from from a movie, and then see try to get as close as you can, you know. That's
Awesome. That's true. I'm also a lighter, to whoever asked that question. If you rewatch this, like, facts. Jerome just said a bunch of facts. Ellie asked in the chat, did you direct any of the 2D animated episodes? And if you did, how is it different from directing the 3D episodes?
well, so I'm not a director. I'm an art director. Just in case that wasn't clear. And yes, I do art direct the same way, whether it's 3D or 2D. So yeah, it was a bit of a learning experience. like in the first couple seasons, like the 2D stuff, because it is a very different kind of medium. But you know, I think it forced me to kind of go to the core of what makes art like art, you know, like it kind of forces me to I love like, you know, doing different kind of mediums. Like we in the second season we also had like a stop motion episode and talk about fucking different. Like that was very different. Um but it's, you know, in the end it all comes like a studio on the screen, and so you kind of have to learn how to like kind of have to learn the basics of like it's still the same rules of visual hierarchy and what makes something appealing or not, even though it's so different. But you know, I enjoy like those projects that kind of make you question a little bit of what you think you know. I don't know if that answered it, but
Ellie, are you did you feel like that was answered, Ellie? Yes.
Yeah. Sweet.
Do you want to read JD's?
Yeah, I could read JD's. So JD asked, when it comes to pitching TV show ideas, what's some way you make yourself convincing, especially if you're trying something that wasn't done before?
well, thankfully, I'm not the one doing those pitches like of TV shows at Netflix, because it requires a special kind of thick skin, you know. You gotta be, you're gonna get rejected a lot of time. Like people, you know, like people who have like a little bit of influence in Hollywood, whether it's Tim now or, you know, he had to, like I've seen him go to 2 or 3 meetings a day for literally 15 years before he got his chance to direct Deadpool. And for 15 years, 3 times a day, he was doing his pitch and he was like, and it's going to be awesome and it's going to be for adults and blah, blah, blah. And then people were like, yeah, but yeah, no, we're not interested. So this is, you know, you got to really believe in your core of, you got to really believe into what you're trying to sell. And you gotta, because you're going to get rejected a lot. Like you're going to be rejected every day for years, sometimes. But that's why it's so difficult to make it in Hollywood. It's because it requires like a special type of people that have got special type of tenacity, you know, like people like Tim or David Fincher or James Cameron, or these are guys that believe in their project, and you can't convince them otherwise. Alberto Miogo, who did Hibaro, like he's like that too. Like he's been wanting to do his projects for years and years. Nobody wanted to hear about it. But when he showed us, we were like, "Fuck, man, yeah, of course you can be in our project. Like that looks awesome." But you know, we're looking for people who want to do things differently, but most of Hollywood does not want that. They want more of the same because it's safer, you know. So it's difficult to find, you know, it's difficult to find like projects like Love, Death and Robots, like because none of the stories are based on like sequels or things that you've ever seen. Then it's getting harder and harder to work on something like that in Hollywood.
Yeah, I want to add, like, my best friend worked at one of those big studios and the financial ones, she would be the one listening to the pitches and then putting together the budget for the film. And this was like a huge studio, not Disney, but like another one of the big ones. And yeah, she said it's just so hard to have like original IP get pitched because everyone's like afraid of taking the risk. And a lot like the Wild Robot that just came out, Le Robot Sauvage, as they say in here in France. But like that one was like, oh my God, that was like such a risk for them to take because, you know, they have their other films, the sequels do so well that doing an original IP like that is like this huge, like, oh my gosh, it has to work. Or if it doesn't work, then they're not going to want to do another original IP again. It's just so tough, I think, like you were saying, just to get those off the ground.
Yeah, it's really, really, really difficult. And so, props to Netflix for like letting us do Love, Death, and Robots for 4 seasons, because it's literally just new worlds that we have to invent, like every story. And I don't want to take that for granted because I know it's not gonna last forever, but like for the while that they let us do it, like it's been a fantastic like breath of fresh air to be able to like work on new things, rather than just rehashing the same stuff over and over again.
Awesome. So one of the folks that like submitted questions beforehand, I don't know if they're attending, but they said that they asked if you're going to be attending Lightbox next week. Because I think you're in LA, right? And if you have any tips on how to take the most advantage of like an in-person conference as a junior artist.
I don't know if I'll be attending, but I know a lot of people who are. I might drop by, but I think the best way to appreciate like things like that is to it's the same as if you were like going into a big studio. Just like your goal should be to make as many connections as you can, and don't just try to make connections with like people who are like high up in the industry, but then neglect your peers. um, I think what you want is to make as many connections with people like you, like, that are at your level, people who you can show your work, people who can tell you like how your work could be better. It's not all about, it's not a huge industry. And so it's not all about like being able to woo like the person at Disney that's going to get you in. A lot of times it's like a lot of time you're going to find a job at a place because you've worked with somebody else that already works at the place, or because somebody else that worked with you like recommended you to somebody else. So I think it's really important to be nice, to other people, to be of, I love this thing, like to be of service, which is, like there's people that you just, if you help them, they'll help you out. And it's just go and ask questions to all the people that you want to, but don't neglect all your peers. I guess is my main answer, because I see often like at conferences where I go, there's just people who just beeline to like talk to me, but will just like use their elbows to like other people, or just want to speak over others, and you notice that, and it doesn't give them like the best, it doesn't make them look the best. While if they just focused on just talking with a bunch of friends, like it's more important to like find your bandmates and then make your own band than just trying to like get into Blur or get into Disney. You know what I mean? You'll get more out of your career like that.
That's facts. Snapping my fingers. And that stuff does go a long way for all my juniors in the chat or anybody else that's like a little bit further ways in their career. It's the people around you. So make sure you talk to your classmates and take advantage of that. Okay, I guess like one of the last questions, this is more of a personal question on my end. Is there any media you've watched recently that you also recommend people to watch? I know you mentioned one earlier, but anything recent that's like, oh, this is awesome.
I haven't watched a lot of stuff lately because I gotta say I'm a little burnt out from like all the stuff that we're
That's
trying
also fine.
to finishing, by the end of the year. So I'll admit I'll zone out in front of Love Island, like after all the CG that we're doing, every once in a while. I don't know. I think I nothing comes to mind, but I'm gonna be I'm gonna toot like the Blur horn here. I do think that Secret Level will be worth a watch because if you enjoyed Love, Death, and Robots, I think you're gonna enjoy it too. It's done by mostly the same people, even though we're trying to kind of keep it, interesting by bringing some new companies. There's some new companies that we'd never worked with before, and there's just some great stories. Like I think one of the things that we've always tried, like whether it's Love, Death, and Robots or Secret Level, is to make sure they're great stories before they're great like visual things, because great visual things with no story is just it's boring for anybody to watch as it is for us. So but I think, yeah, I think you guys are gonna dig it. Just watch it. It's in a couple months if we can finish it.
Silly question for me, but do you ever go to France? Like, I want to say hi to you in person.
I do. I was there I was there in June last year, and I'm going back next June. I'm going to the if you're going to the Annecy Film Festival, I'll be there next year.
My gosh, yes, I think I'll definitely go with my school. So, oh my God, maybe I'll see you there, Jerome.
Yeah, let's meet up over there. That'd be cool.
And I just, from a personal comment, I'm mostly in 2D animation, so I don't really know a lot of what goes into 3D animation. I don't really know the nuances of it. So I think this was really interesting for me to, understand it better. So thank you for that. Brittany?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been super informational, and like I myself have learned. I've known you for like what now, 2 years now, and I'm still constantly learning from you. So it's so cool to like just get an insight on your perspective and your career and all the tips that you've given us today. My final question to you, unless there's anyone else who wants to sneak in that another question, this is your final call. But is it okay if you can share with us like your LinkedIn or email or a form of contact to,
Sure.
reach out to you and ask any other questions or just, take advantage of like
Reach out on
browsing us?
LinkedIn. Like my name is at the bottom. There's only one. Um, um, sometimes LinkedIn is like I'll do my best to answer a question and to get back to you. Sometimes, if it's really important, like just don't hesitate to like ping me back, because sometimes I miss it, or sometimes but I'm happy to connect with everybody that was here today. And if you have some more questions,
Yeah, y'all
the,
y'all
the
heard it.
way here's the thing with LinkedIn that I would recommend is when somebody has like long questions or very kind of deep things, like it's a little complicated sometimes because I'm on my phone, like to just kind of type up like a long, thoughtful answer. However, I will never say no if you're like me and 3 friends or 4 friends or however many friends Brittany had like managed to like find today. If you're like, can we steal an hour of your time? And there's like 4 or 5 of us, and we would love to show you like our demo reels or our portfolios. Um, I I'll never say no to that, because I don't have to type up like long answers. We set up a time, we set up an hour, we discuss stuff, and if it benefits like 5 or 6 people, then I'm always happy to do that. So just that's another way to get some more questions answered if you're interested.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Maybe I'll talk with Adele about this afterwards, and we could bring a couple folks and organize that like for a time that works best for you. Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
think that's like a really, like, we noticed that in advertising this, we didn't have like a ton of people in our community in VFX and CG, which was really interesting for us to notice, like as opposed to like the storyboarders and the animator, like a ton of them, but we really want to try to find more VFX people, like, and find
Yeah.
them. I think, it's something that I'm like, I'm sure they're out there, but we got to find them. And
Oh, they're out there. Like,
yeah,
let me know what you're looking for. I'll hook you up.
Oh, let's do
yeah,
it.
bring
That's
them.
cool.
Yeah.
And also, like, I don't know if there's any 2D people here, but our paths we cross often, and I think Jerome has established that today. So, tell your friends, make sure you're aware of things that are happening in 3D. And to my 3D folks, make sure you talk to your 2D people because we all work together, like outside of school, outside of work. It happens.
It's all the same. It's all the same thing. Don't get too like territorial about like 3D versus 2D or like, like look at Love This and Robots. Like we don't care. We just want like fun stories, and whether it's 2D, 3D, live action, stop motion, whatever. If it's creative and it looks like a fun thing to work on, just
Good.
try it.
I was gonna say Julia in the comments, she said, I'm interested in becoming an animator at a visual effects company. I don't know if you have advice for them.
Become a great animator. Just study animation and become the greatest animator that you can be. Animation is difficult. I know that I'm not. When I started at Blur, I sent my demo reel as a generalist, and it was like everything because I'd done everything at my previous job, like whether it's like character modeling, rigging, animation, like lighting, rendering. And when I started, Tim was like, "So what do you want to do?" I was like, I like to do a little bit of everything. Like, I do some character modeling, some animation, some lighting. He's like, you can do everything here except animation. It was like, based on your demo reel, you're not an animator.
Damn. No, I felt that.
I haven't done any animation in the last 20 years, but you gotta, when you want to, especially if you want to work at a visual effects company, just study animation the best you can with the best people around you. Find people who will tell you. Find a group of people that will tell you things the way they are, and don't surround yourself with people who will tell you what you want to hear. Because that's the most important thing. You want to have like some real feedback on your animation to get better. Because if the only thing you're asking your people around you is like, hey, do you like my animation? Like just by phrasing it like that, like people are gonna be like, yeah, that's pretty good. But you gotta find ways to just have people tell you like, hey, look at my animation. Tell me 3 things that could make it better. Just frame it like that, and then people will give you like some honest feedback. Because otherwise you're cutting yourself off from the best source of feedback, which is all the people around you.
Whoa. We got a question. I can't read your name. I'm sorry, because it's in Russian, I think. But let me know how to pronounce it if you want. For new graduates preparing their portfolios, Alicia. Okay, Alicia. For new graduates preparing their portfolios, would you recommend to really specialize in one thing? Example, 3D animation, lighting, etc. Or is it better not to pigeonhole yourself when starting out?
That's what I was saying earlier. Like if you want to be a generalist, then be a generalist. Like, but the thing is, like, you need to be aware of like the kind of jobs. I think what's important is to model your demo reel for the type of job at the company that you're applying for. And by that, I mean that if you want to be a generalist and you're coming out of school, don't apply to Disney because Disney has no generalist job. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to work at a big, huge company like Disney or ILM or DreamWorks, then you're going to need to be a specialist because their pipeline is so huge that they have positions that are so specialized because they need to hire like people who are very, very good at one particular thing. And that's how they get those like massive movies of it. However, if you want to work at an ad agency, which is what I did when I started, like, which is a smaller team of just 4 or 5 people, and you want to do like fun jobs, like little commercials, like little projects, where you're gonna have 4 or 5 people that need to kind of be nimble and need to do a little bit of rigging and a little bit of lighting and a little bit of compositing because there's not enough specialists in that company to just kind of cover everything. So, but that's if that's what you want to do, then do that. But you need to be aware that don't send your demo reel as a very special, like as a specialized like creature rigger at an ad agency. They're not going to look at it. They're like, well, we have no need for that. Like we've got 5 positions for artists. Like this is way too specialized for us. And same goes for something like Disney. If you're like, hey, look, I can do some like me, like you're like, hey, look, I can do some character modeling, some animation, and some lighting. They're gonna look at you and be like, yeah, great, but which one do you want to do? Because you can't do it all here. So I think it's important. You can do whatever you want, but you need to be aware of what the openings are at the company that you're sending your reel to, because it's not the same. And there's nothing worse than seeing some of those demo reels that come in, like where people are trying to show that they know how to do a little bit of everything, but you should only present the work that you are confident you can do professionally at the company that you're applying for. You know what I mean? Like if you're applying as a character modeler at Blur, but you do some sketches in your free time, we don't really care about the sketches that you do on your free time. Like we want to see your character models, right? So that's I hope that answers your question, Alicia. Because that's how I would approach it. Just be aware of who you are applying to, because that's something that I see very often, where people have like one kind of weird demo reel with like a whole bunch of stuff, and then they just send it to all the like to a whole bunch of companies, regardless of what that company does. But you need to be aware of what that company is doing, because if you're not, you might as well not send anything. Like, you need to show them that you are ready to perform at a professional level in some capacity.
She said, makes sense. Thanks for the detailed answer. And that's true.
Okay, good.
I think, Brittany, unless we have anything else, did you have any other questions? Oh, wait, we got one from Matthew. How do you navigate through, no worries. How do you navigate through the prominence of AI in your role as creative director, and maybe how to utilize or not utilize it at all?
I'm surprised that as I've done quite a few talks, and this is the first AI question I've received, which is, um, I think AI is very scary for a lot of people. However, I use it almost every day now, like in fashion that is probably a little different from what I thought, or from what most people thought. I think I use it every day for paint orders, for example. Like it's a very great tool to be able to just kind of give it an image and then just ask for options of how that image could look a little better. It's a great tool. Like if you're a character modeler, I think you should use AI, because it will show you exactly where your anatomy is not the greatest, or where you could improve your skin texture, for example. I think for that type of stuff, it's really useful. I'm one of those people that when I'm terrified of something, I try to learn how to use it because maybe that means I'll be able to to use it to my advantage. I understand I really understand all the questions and all the fears around AI because it's something that's coming so quickly and it has the potential to be very damaging to like a large part of the industry, but you can't ignore it and you can't just say, oh well, it's just I don't want to hear about it because it's bad or whatever. I think everybody should be aware of what it can do because there's a lot of uses to it that are not particularly questionable, but at the same time it's important to know what it can do because it's going fast.
Yeah, I think like a good way to say is like AI is a tool, so don't be afraid to use it, especially now. I know I've heard of AI being used to like create scripts a lot quicker for people in case like you need something quick done. So, there's benefits to it. It's nice to hear your perspective on how
There's
you use it.
tons of benefits to it, for sure. I think for people who are starting, I think you should look into it as a way to get better because it's like having a teacher by your side that's going to point out like all the things that could be better. Don't pass on that opportunity because it's a great tool.
Sweet.
Gosh.
Okay. I think that's all of our questions. So
I'm gonna just drop our socials on the bottom if you guys want to stay in contact with us. Ellie said this has been very helpful and also very hopeful. The industry is kind of dull right now, but hearing about your passion is really inspiring. Oh, thank you, Ellie.
Thank you, Ellie. But I know that the industry is a little bit of it's not super fun right now. Just give it a couple months. Give it a couple months, and I think it's gonna start again a little bit in the new year. I know because I work with a lot of different companies, like we're kind of like on both Love, Death and Robots and Secret Level, like we're kind of finishing those projects, so there's not a lot going on because we got to finish. But starting in the new year, we're hopefully gonna restart like new projects, and we'll be able to other companies are gonna work with us and so hopefully they'll get better.
Well, thank you so much, Jerome. Silly question, but would you be able to take a little photo with us? Just like a little screenshot? Let me.
What should I do?
I don't know if you want to wave. I mean, you're huge on my screen, so Brittany, me, you're the only ones on camera. Okay. You want to do something? You want to wave or something?
let's throw peace sign.
Wait, one more time. Stay like that, Jerome. It's like it says it raised your okay. Got it.
Yay.
Thank you so much, Jerome. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Of course. And for those who couldn't come, etc., we'll be sending out the recording soon anyway. So thank you so much again, Jerome. We hope to see you again at a future event.
Yeah, just call me. Call me. I'm not far.
Oh, thank you.
Sweet.
Really appreciate it. All right. Let me
All right,
everyone.
you guys.
Thank you.
Have a great Sunday. Bye.
All right. Bye, y'all.